So I've got my buddy Tate here. We're doing this kind of like interview style where I'm asking students really kind of the essentials about how they stay resilient in their faith, how they cling to Jesus despite life circumstances, despite really living in a culture that doesn't care about Jesus anymore, and what that looks like. And so we really have kind of four different questions I wanted students to answer, and you guys to hear from their own personal walks with Jesus and what that entails. So really the first question I have for you, Tate, is what's been the most impactful thing in your walk with Jesus, in your words?
Well, I don't know, it sounds pretty broad, but I say the most impactful thing in my walk has been just relationships in general, because seeing people pour into you and what it does to your life definitely it changes how you see everything. And then when you get the chance to pour into other people and see how it changes their lives, it kind of it keeps you coming, and it keeps you kind of wanting more. It gives you kind of this rush, and you just want to keep doing it.
Who are the people that impacted you?
Well, obviously, I had this guy, Alan. He was my small group leader back in middle school. And back when we really didn't understand all this stuff about Jesus and whatever, he just took time he put time into us, and he would hang out with us, and he would take time in between just to talk to us about what we wanted to know, and he would answer those questions or try his hardest to answer. And I think that really kept us coming because, he put in a lot of effort towards me and my friends, and obviously also Taylor, because, she went from babysitting me when I was a little kid to being my youth pastor eventually. So it's obviously her putting in time and always making sure that that we were okay, and if we had any questions, obviously she would also try to answer them. So
what do you think drove people like Alan and Taylor to do what they do?
Well, I think, and especially Joey too, I'm not going to not mention Joey as one. So those guys, people obviously poured into them a lot and taught them a lot of things. And I think they wanted to give back and to pour into other people that, kind of just to give back,
Yeah. So Tate, how do you personally balance your priorities in putting God first in your life? Because that's, if we're just being honest with each other, that whether you're a teenager, whether you're a young adult, whether you're an adult, that's hard to do. We live in a world that's fast-paced. You got this voice, this job, this thing telling you all the things to do. So what do you do?
Well, like you said, there's always getting stuff thrown at you. Life is super impactful, and there's a lot of things going on. But what I try to do is I try to just take time to reflect on my day and see where God has worked throughout the day. And that could be reminders in your phone, or just, have one of your friends or someone that mentors you to remind you to reflect about everything. But personally, I use my phone to set reminders throughout the day to reflect, and that always keeps God first,
Yeah. So give me an example of maybe something you've reflected on, and what did that, how did that conversation maybe go on in your head, and then what did it cause you to do after that maybe?
Well, I give an example of one day I didn't really notice anything that happened. There was a kid, and we all invited him to sit down at our table, and I just didn't think of anything of it. And I had a really bad day that day, so I was like, why? Why is this such a bad day? I had a bad day at practice, When I got home, it just wasn't a good day. But when I took time to reflect, eventually I realized that we made that kid's day, and God worked in that way, and I didn't even notice that. And I would have skipped that if I never thought about my day in general.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool that you bring that up, because I think a lot of those God moments happen without even us being aware that they're happening, until you said, you step back and go, wait a minute, okay, that was bigger than it seemed to appear at the time. Yeah. And the beautiful thing is, I think the more you do that reflecting part, the more you actually become actively aware, in the moment. So at first it becomes reaction. You're oh yeah, that happened. Then you actually get good enough that you're oh, this is happening now. I'm in this moment now, and that's super cool. Is there anything else you do to prioritize God for yourself?
Well, also not only in my phone, but I have people, my friends, check up on me and make sure one of my friends, Danny, he'll text me what has God done today, and so sometimes I may not have an answer, but I'll think of one and I'll get back to him the next day. And so stuff like that definitely helps me out a lot, having good friends, and also my phone.
So Tate, in your own words, how do you find a Danny? Or how did that happen? How do you find someone that cares enough about you that they're kind of, hey, what's going on in your life? Tell me what Jesus is doing. How do you find someone like that?
How I find someone like that is like, I don't know, just be yourself, I'd say. And like, I'm comfortable telling people my faith, which I know it's really hard for a lot of people.
Sure.
But like, I'm in an environment at my school where I'm able to talk about that, which it may be worse at some environments. Like, I go to like a Christian school, but that may be harder, But like, I was just myself, and we have a lot of interest, and we go eat, and he likes to like incorporate stuff like when we're just talking or whatever, which is really good. And there's a lot of things that he does well that I look up to him for, and there's stuff that he looks up to me that I do well. So I guess kind of just finding that and keeping each other accountable.
The beautiful thing about having a friendship like that is, because I had those friendships when I was a teenager too, and I don't know that I deserved them, but I hate to say lucky, but I think God placed people in my life that were intentional, and I think that's a word that, I don't know Danny, but I don't think Danny's accidentally asking you those questions, although probably in organic conversation that stuff kind of comes up. But I think he's intentionally thinking about your walk with Jesus and thinking about you as his friend and going, hey, I want the best for Tate, so I'm going to ask these questions. And then you're kind of reciprocating that by doing the same back to him. I mean, for me, I had those men in my life that they would just constantly ask me those questions, and it became so ingrained in my head that I started asking people those questions, because I'm like, oh, that felt really good when someone checked in on me and cared for me that way. I want to do that for others. So that's like really cool to see that happen.
Yeah, and like also when you have like a relationship like that, when that person is also lacking in their walk with Jesus, or like when I'm lacking in my walk with Jesus, we're always there to like kind of give each other a kick in the butt and be there for each other.
Yeah.
Which I think it values a lot. And like, I go to like a Sunday small group, and he's a part of it. I think that kind of helps, like just being like in a youth group environment, or like in some sort of like small group.
That's huge. Did you have anything else that helps you prioritize God, or?
Yeah, just relationships. I rely a lot on those, but like also like just I guess my phone, and I do like kind of like a plan on YouVersion. I do.
Cool. Yeah. Who introduced you to that?
We went to a summer camp a while back, and the head of YouVersion, it was Craig Kroschel. He's like in charge of that. Yeah. The church. He was just talking about like how the app may sound like cliche or whatever, but there's so many things that like could help you in your walk, because you're on your phone so many, like if you check your hours, you're on it, like 9-10 hours a day, which is insane. So it's like you might as well split some of that time up for God, and so I guess that kind of helped me out.
Yeah.
And you could find good plans too on there. It's endless,
That's awesome. Tate, what are the biggest things that keep you away from pursuing Jesus, or maybe distract you from Jesus, and how do you kind of combat that? Because I think an important part of faith is choice, meaning you're choosing what you do with your day, you're choosing what you prioritize, you're choosing what you focus in on. So what are some of the biggest things that you fight against, maybe? Or
there's definitely a lot of things that are hard to like combat but I'd say like, I guess when life is just throwing so many things at you, I guess you just kind of get in the mode of reacting. And I guess when you get into that, you don't really know what's happening. You're just making decisions like irrationally.
Yeah. And
like sin is tempting, and it's supposed to be like fun or whatever. But if you're not able to reflect and realize that like a relationship with God is more important, and it could be way more fun than anything that you could do that's, like sinful. I think that you get stuck in a mode like that, and you just kind of just snowballs down, and you make bad decisions.
Yeah. So what then? Because I think you're right. I think you're hitting on something that comes naturally to us in our culture now, which is just reacting to everything, right? We use the word triggered, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are triggered because we haven't sat back and reflected on, like, how do I feel about this? And you know what? Even though this is my opinion about something, doesn't mean I'm attached to it all the time. So I don't have to kind of react in such an emotional way. But so how do you combat that? How do you? What are your tactics, if you will, against that?
Well, like I said earlier, I just try to like reflect every day on what's happening, because you can kind of get stuck in the passenger seat of the car, and it just goes on cruise control. And that's kind of where I feel like sometimes you'll be like, something's happening and you just want to sit back and like, well, it's easier to do this. I don't want to do what's harder, which obviously is, when you're just reacting. But I'd say like, just surrounding myself with people that aren't reacting and that they have they have relationships and that they're dealing with them. And that doesn't have to be all your friends, because you obviously want to input yourself into other people's lives and like impact other people. But I say just having like a good amount of people that you hang out with that show you that you can't be in the passenger seat the whole time. You want to take the wheel.
That's awesome. So like a core group of friends
Exactly.
that maybe like you pour your heart out to the most, are because they say you are who your friends are.
Yeah.
And if those people that are the closest to you are people who also reflect and ask good questions and kind of think about it, that's cool. It kind of rubs off on you and you become a person like that too.
Yeah.
And I assume these are people that you can go to for answers, even when you blew it, even when you were emotional and you're like, okay, well, that wasn't a great one,
Mm-hmm.
We had this winter retreat and, and we kind of talked about a legacy you leave behind. And I will say this, Tate, you haven't experienced this yet, but the older you get, the more this idea of what legacy are you leaving behind becomes very prevalent. For all of us, I would say, maybe even in a bigger way for men, what am I leaving behind? What have I accomplished? Who is the person I am now? And so like as a younger person, and I know I seem old to some of y'all, but I'm still technically a younger person. I'm thinking about, who do I want to become? What is not necessarily like what's the job, because I'm going to tell you this much, that's going to change. Career choices are going to change throughout life. That's kind of the fun of it, actually, is discovering that. But who do you want to be? And then as you think about this person you want to become one day and are becoming, what are the steps to reaching that?
Well, I'd say the person I want to become is obviously a man of God that understands his relationship and why he's here, because that's probably one of the biggest things, understanding why you're here. And once you understand who you are, you can understand what you want to do. And there's many options to do. God has given you gifts where you could pick and choose on which you could use your skills for. I guess to take the steps, it's just to find out a little who you are. And I guess the people you hang around, like you said, kind of show you who you are. And so, and once you figure out, you just open the Bible and figure out who you want to be, you can look around and see the people you're hanging around, and is that going to get you to who you want to be?
Yeah.
And that may be hard to make that decision, but you can still have contact with those people. But I guess just trying to constantly move forward and develop yourself as a person, because once you get complacent, and that's when your relationship with God kind of just stays stale.
Yeah, so you're a guy who frequents the gym, and the reality is you might have maybe a certain amount of weight you're trying to accomplish, or just a weight in general, your body has to be so many pounds. So that's a goal. That's kind of the end result, is I want to be, let's say, 220 pounds of muscle, right? So then as you look at that goal, and maybe there's a real person online or that goes to your school or I don't know, a friend that is already that size. You look at that goal and you go, hey, I want to accomplish that. So then in your head you go, then what are the steps now to intentionally, meaning and you keep bringing this up, which is, I can't just hope that I arrive there. Yeah. I'm actually doing legitimate, tangible things to get there by surrounding myself with great friends that are pointing me to Jesus and to the man I want to be. So what I'm curious though is, what is Tate's way of going, hey, I was here, now I've made some increments closer here. Do you have any answers for that? And it's okay if you don't, because I think you develop those tool sets as you go, on.
Well, obviously, what I measure mine by may not be what everybody does, but I guess what I would say is, if I look back 6 months ago, I was still doing this, and I was cursing like this, and I was doing that, cutting out the little things, and then you can notice that Well, and on top of that, I was pouring into this person. And instead of reading, one verse a day, I started reading a chapter a day, and started to realize that stuff. And I feel like it'll kind of take care of itself, I guess.
The fact is, you're going to get attacked for your faith. So what do you think is the one thing that'll help you kind of cling to really your relationship with Jesus?
And I know I keep drawing back to this over and over again, but like relationships will definitely help you steer that way, because like if you go to like a bigger environment like college and stuff like that, or like your job, there's obviously people that are going to hammer you on your faith, because those people, obviously are putting their faith into something that's not actually there. And we put our faith into something that's, going to give us eternal life. But those people obviously are going to attack you, and they're going to hammer your faith, and they're going to try to break down what you believe in. But I'd say, like, as long as you understand why you're here and what your purpose is in life, like your calling, I'd say I don't think really, maybe you'll question it, but that's what like, mentors are for. That's what like people around you are for, because if you're just, doing your devotional and reading your Bible and you're not really having any relationships, of course you're going to question, because you don't know all the answers. There's people that are older than you that understand what you've been through, and they'll have answers for those questions. They may not have all the answers, because we got us all the answers, but you may see God answering your questions through those people. So I think that would really...
I think that's brilliant, man. I wholeheartedly agree with you. You've been hammering kind of the idea of tribe, of a community, a group of people that are really close to your heart that shape you. And it's funny, I've had these moments, and this is natural to following Jesus, where you do actually start to wonder, like, is this whole thing maybe a joke, or have I been wasting my time? Like, those thoughts, those doubts are natural to being a human. And by the way, I want to really endorse that. Because they're natural, that doesn't mean you're giving up on your faith or you can't ask those questions. But I remember when there was a moment where I really was questioning, like, is this whole thing a joke? Have I been wasting my time? It was a very low moment of my walk with Jesus. And I remembered my close friend, my mentor, Mike. And I remember just thinking, the only thing I could cling to really in that moment was, but Mike really loves Jesus and is convinced of it, and he really loves me. And that connection was enough for me to go, that's enough for me to stay in it. Yeah. And then of course, kind of as life got a little bit better, I was just like, whoa, wow, that was a test of my faith. But you're right, it's the people that you go, but I see Jesus in this person, and that's enough for me. And I wonder if a student or anyone doesn't have those people they can point to, what happens to your faith in that moment? And it really kind of drives the point that we were never designed to be alone in this, to be, kind of the Rambo solo Christian. We were meant to be in good, healthy relationships. So. Love you guys, and thanks for tuning in.